Home is where connections are made, memories are formed, and ideas are born. And no one knows home better than NFM. Thanks for tuning in to I Am Home, the podcast that goes deeper than trends and dives into what it means to make your house a home.
Amy Myers here from NFM headquarters on a special edition of the NFM podcast. Not your normal host, Tyler, but I'm stepping in. It's Women's Month, so we've invited our esteemed panel of female leaders across our organization. I'm here with Nastasia Williams, our store director out of Kansas City. Hi, Nastasia.
Hi.
Robin Messley, our chief information officer. I feel like I butchered your last name.
Thank you, Amy.
Megan Berry Barlow, our chief human resources officer.
Hi, I'm a little scratchy, but enthusiastic nonetheless.
And Nora Gomez, our chief merchandising officer.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Nora. So we've pulled together this group to talk leadership, navigating workplaces, and celebrate the accomplishments of these amazing women. So excited to get into it. But before we get to that, let me tell you why we're even doing this podcast. And that's because NFM is more than just your everything home store. We're in the business of improving lifestyles. Learn more at nfm.com. Okay, so we are here to talk about Women's Month, which is super important to us at NFM. It all starts with our founder. In 1937, Rose Blumkin had a revolutionary idea: sell cheap and tell the truth. 87 years later, that's still the guiding principle behind everything we do at NFM. So as we celebrate Women's History Month, we're here to celebrate the impact Mrs. B had on the business and on the world. We do it with events in our stores. We share it with our staff. There's just a ton of things going on, but we wanted to do a special episode of our podcast and have a discussion and hear from our women leadership team directly. So I wanted to, we do a lot of questions around leadership, and we talk about, the everything positive and the things that we've kind of moved through our careers on. And we've got the women's panel coming up. I think that we're all on this year in different cities and have done for multiple years, which are always great opportunities to kind of get in front of the community and meet other women leaders. I always enjoy that. But as I was thinking through what we wanted to talk about today, the part in Mrs. B's story where, we already know it was in the 30s, she's starting this business, she's a female, she's an immigrant, but she had people actually like making it harder for her, right? And that's kind of, I think, sort of an interesting part of that story, where she had literally vendors just wouldn't sell to her. Didn't sell to her because other competitors didn't want them to, because she was a woman. She had financing that she couldn't get because she was a woman. She was sued by her competitors. And I think that whole idea of the barriers, it wasn't just growing a business in an incredibly difficult time, but the barriers that were put up in her career. And I thought that would be an interesting place for us to start and just sort of, candidly talk about what are some challenges that you've had in your career, times that you were blocked and, barricaded from something, or something just went poorly and you didn't have anybody helping you. It was more like people were trying to get it and make this more difficult for you. And how did you navigate that? And does anybody want to share?
I can think of an example. I made some notes in advance. So most of you know, but if you don't, Nebraska Furniture Mart does something pretty unique in terms of how we deliver healthcare. We direct contract with medical providers. So that includes hospital systems, et cetera. So there's not an insurance company that holds the contract. We actually sign a document with XYZ Hospital Group, XYZ Doctor Group to provide services. And originally, when we wanted to start that, it was here in Omaha, where we've got this great reputation. We've been around for a long time, name recognition. So we went to one of the two major players that we had been doing a lot of work, particularly around wellness with. We said, hey, we'd like to try this direct contracting thing. And the answer was literally just no. And it was sort of almost like a non-starter. And it's a great opportunity for me to amplify another fantastic woman at Nebraska Furniture Mart. Tiffany Skaw, who's our strategic benefits manager, she and I kind of sat back for a couple of days. We're like, what do you mean no? we just assumed that we had this great idea and we had it all figured out and that everybody would want to do what we wanted to do. And when they didn't, we sat around for a while. We're like, okay, well, there's another player in town. And we still had conviction in what this model might look like. And thankfully, so did the other large medical group in town. But I just remember those couple of days, like I was almost too embarrassed to even talk about it with myself in my own head, because I was like, what do you mean they said no? So it's, sort of a great lesson about it wasn't something that we had experience with. So stepping out of your own comfort zone, and then when it doesn't work, trying again. And I don't know that they said no particularly because we were women, but I'll be honest, I don't think it helped.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I have a story too that yours resonated with me. So I'm in IT, and as most of you know, it's very male dominated, and that doesn't bother me, not anymore. But I think in my leadership journey, the first barrier I really felt being a woman was when I was being groomed for this position, and I would go to networking events with, senior level IT people, and I was often the only woman in the room, which, again, that wasn't the biggest thing, but people would come up to me and my predecessor and reach out and shake his hand and start conversation, and I'd be standing beside them and they wouldn't even acknowledge me. So after several uncomfortable lean-ins, shaking their hands and introducing
making
myself.
yourself be known.
Yeah. And after many, many times of that happening, I think people got used to the fact that I was going to be in the room, that I was going to have a voice, and that I was every bit as valuable as them in the room and in the conversation. So, and that really just inspired, it kind of became fuel for me. Mm-hmm. To then start bringing along other women, and getting more women involved in IT and in, executive roles and that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a barrier, but again, I think it was a good platform for me to move people forward.
Yeah. What about you, Nora?
I was listening to the different stories, and I remember being in a call and or maybe it was one of our girl chats that we have. And Megan,
have those.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Those secret ones.
Yeah.
There was something that we were talking about a female rising in a particular situation. And Megan wrote back in the chat, imagine the day when we don't need to celebrate this and this is just normal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that, and I continue to think about that, because through doing what we're doing today, we're champions for each other, right? And I was speaking at a conference, a Furniture Today conference, and as I looked out, it was a panel of women, and as I looked out at the audience, I tried really hard not just to see men, but they were all men. And what I was speaking to was really how you treat others is what you get back in return, right? Mm-hmm. And so walking into these showrooms, and we walk in with the esteemed Irv Blumkin, who's just a legend in the furniture industry. Tony Bolt, our president, is with us, and Shane Pullman, our furniture director, is with us. And, here I'm coming in with them, right? And there's a lot of handshaking and, hey, how's it going? And then they take off, right? And they start walking the showroom, and I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Sort of similar to Robin's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I said, I could either, kind of be a jerk about this, or I could, in my Service Plus way, let people know that this is, and maybe create some awareness. Mm-hmm. And so in my Service Plus way on this panel, I just kind of told it like it was. And I said, now that doesn't mean that when I go and visit your showroom that I want you to come and shake my hand. But what I want you to do is treat everyone the same way as they walk through your door, because everyone that walks through your door is a customer, and they should be treated the same way always.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good one. Nastasia, what about you?
I love that. Well, I don't know that I've dealt with any like deliberate blocking. I feel like in my role, oftentimes what I encounter or run into is, I guess I can sum it up to unconscious bias. Oftentimes I get surprised reactions, and I can tell facial expressions or demeanors change from when I'm there then to when I'm introduced and my title is introduced. They're like, oh, like I'm like, okay, you assumed, again, probably to Nora's story as well, that okay, I'm not as important as the person maybe that I walked in with. So I get a lot of surprise reactions. At times I think, before it's been a little offensive, but now I take it with lots of pride and proud of that.
Good.
You should.
Yes.
Nastasia.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
I'll tell a quick story on one that this was not here, but in another company. And again, it's kind of what you're saying, Nastasia. It's not exactly that it was a block, but it's sort of the unconscious bias that I think we're faced with. And I was head of marketing at the time at this company, and we brought a vendor. We had been working with this vendor for it was an RFP process. So we were going through the RFP process, and it was down to the very last step, and we had negotiated and narrowed down and whittled down, and conversation after conversation and scoping and everything that you do for these large contracts. And someone who was on the executive team with me, who I think he was our chief operating officer, he was asking about it because he was just kind of interested. He knew I had talked about it. And I said, our final meeting's coming up. The vendor's coming in. It's a final presentation. Why don't you come join? And it was a huge room, huge table. It's sort of pre-COVID when everyone travels in, and they did their final presentation. He introduced himself in the meeting, but he was there to observe, and that was it. At the end, so we left. We were waiting for the final quote. They sent it just to him. He never introduced himself as being the decision maker. And to his credit, he was like, sent it back to them like, what the hell are you guys doing? I have nothing to do with this. I was an observer, but he was a male. He was a colleague of mine, and I think that's how it got sent. So I ended up going to New York to this vendor and getting in front of their sales team. They invited me in, and we spoke about that moment and the decision that the guys had made, that they thought that was the right thing. They had just made an assumption. By the way, didn't even copy me. It's not like he was, they sent it only to him.
Only to him.
Only
I
to
love it.
him. He was just a guy in the room at the end, just trying to learn,
Wow.
So luckily he was a great partner with us, but one of those unconscious bias that you're like, man, we're still working through that. Anyway, thank you for the stories. Second question, I moved on. And this just came to me last week. So I was at a conference, and we're taking the shuttle bus back and forth. And the bus was small, and there weren't a lot of people on it. And there were these two young women that sat in front of me on the bus. And I overheard their conversation. And one of the things they were talking about is they were like, it's so neat to watch the women up that were speaking on the panels. And they literally said they were just like us at one point, just like us coming to these meetings, watching, and now they've got the big titles and the big jobs. And it was so, I felt like I was just sort of spying, but getting a glimpse of they were probably maybe early 30s, but, still in the beginning of their career, and their aspiration to that, and how much it meant to them to see, women on these panels. And do you have any memories of a moment like that, or someone where you're like, oh, they were openly talking about their aspirations of that's who I want to be, and that's what I'm seeking. And I loved their openness, by the way. I think that open ambition is great. But
It's awesome.
Robin,
That's a great story. I was thinking about this question, and there's so many people I admire and people that I thought, gosh, I wish I could be like her or him or whatever. But I mean, I think about Lady Diana, America's princess. She just had so many characteristics that I admire and respect and really still impact me today. She was just such a people person. She cared about individuals. It didn't matter who you were, what your background was, what your status was. She just advocated for all people, and she advocated for AIDS, and she advocated for underachievers and people of all different races and socio-status. And then, she used her fame for such good purposes, for supporting those, the men with HIV and the smoking, drug addiction, eating disorders, and she was so authentic, and she even owned the fact that she struggled with an eating disorder herself and depression, and I think so many people in like the royal court, they're a little bit stuffy, and she broke that stigma, and I think the thing with her is she was just so true to herself, and she was willing to just kind of break all of the rules, and so I like to be like her.
That's a good one.
Well, she was a
else?
fashion icon.
She
Yeah.
was.
So if you're
Yeah.
going to
I
pick
tell ya.
someone to be like,
Right?
Right. There's a beautiful exhibit of her wardrobe, supposedly in Las Vegas, that got very good reviews.
Oh, wow.
Nora,
And I was
actually
just there.
went to
Did you?
see it in Atlanta many years ago, and her wedding dress was part of it. And one of my girlfriends went, and it was sort of like they were all doing me a favor to go with me. But to see her fashion and to know the person behind it. So often fashion is sort of vapid. And anyway, if you have a chance,
Mhm.
I'm always inspired by fashion.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but like the textiles behind it and the color and all of that. So
Look at you. You are.
Yes,
I mean,
but
just even that.
she in particular had a real neat sense of fashion.
She
So
did.
it would be worth it if you're ever back there to go
Yeah,
see it.
for sure. For sure.
Anyone else interested in that?
I do.
What
I
about you?
have, let me say first, I thought of each of the women that I'm on this panel with, and I have this little nugget of something in my head I'd like to share with you. But for the essence of time in today's panel, I thought of, there's a person I know here in the local Omaha community. Her name is Jill Orton, and she is the CEO of this region, which is a multi-state area for the Red Cross. And I was a multi-year board member, and then I'm currently like a member at large, a community member at large. And there's a lot of things about her that are spectacular. Two that stand out, though, specifically to me, is that she was sort of a Red Cross swimming instructor growing up, and she always had this passion for the Red Cross and really found a way to let that be her full career. And so I think there's always a message out there to people who have something that they love in their life, and you just can't figure out how it's going to be a job, to never let go of that. Because I think a lot of times it's passion that makes us successful, having a great job and a great workplace and a successful business, all those things are part of it too. But your passion that you bring to it, I think, is really what elevates it all. But there's this specific thing about her that I remember and I really loved. And so she's the CEO of this, and one of her, only for illustrative purposes, subordinates, someone lower than her in the organizational structure. Anytime that there was a disaster, so if there was a flood that impacted somewhere in her region, she and this other person flipped roles, and it was very deliberate, and they communicated it, and it's called gray sky. So during blue skies, when times were good, she ran the business, she fundraised, and minor, like a home fire, she would handle that. But when there was a massive disaster, they flipped, because this other woman on her team that she had come up through the organization with had more experience and just was better at those kind of tactical decisions that were needed in these times of crisis. And I was like,
That's fascinating.
what an ability
Yeah.
to be humble and to really put whatever your organization's purpose is at the forefront. The best way to serve people in a major disaster is by letting this other person lead and letting me take a different role. So I've always, my HR team knows that we talk sometimes about gray sky. We had an example here at NFM, an opportunity to amplify another great woman here. When COVID happened and business like everywhere went crazy, as you can imagine, paying the NFM family was paramount. And our commitment was through a variety of structures and formulas, but our staff were going to be made whole. And so our payroll manager, Catherine Grauman, really kind of took over. So these meetings that we used to have that were HR payroll focused, Catherine led them. Catherine made sure that all the tasks that needed to be talked about every day, and I mean every day, to make sure that our staff members were taken care of. So Catherine was our leader in a gray sky. And so if you know her, everyone out there in Listerland, thank her, because she really deserves credit for that.
Love that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, unless you guys had another one, I'll kind of move on what I was thinking. I want to transition to storytelling and kind of telling, your own story and your own kind of highlight reel. We talk about it from a brand, but I think there's this place where you also are talking about your own career path and your own personal brand. I'll tell a quick story. And I had a moment when I was interviewing. This was years ago, and I had gotten to this point where I had a series of 3 for different reasons. One company shut down, one I didn't like, but I had 3 fairly short jobs at once. And I was interviewing this company. At the end of my interview, everyone kind of left, and the guy stayed behind. And he said, "Your story in these 3 jobs is," and he pulled out all the positives of like what's positive about those. And then he just left. I didn't get an offer there, but what he did for me is turned it into like a highlight reel, and he helped me, which was very gracious of him. I mean, that was not a company I was going to, but it helped me think through something and turn it into my story that was a highlight reel and not a negative. And it was, I thought, a very gracious thing to do. But
Amy, let me interrupt because of all
Yeah.
the things as a person who does interviewing sometimes, I specifically remember when you came to NFM,
Yeah.
that same thing came up in sort of your onboarding with your team. They were sort of like, how come you didn't work very long at a lot of companies? Because as many of you know, at NFM, there's a lot of people with a lot of tenure. And obviously your ability to tell that story sticks with you, because your response was like, I want to be somewhere like this. Like that's not my desired state. So I'm glad that it resonated with me after all
Yeah,
these years of you being here. I'll never forget that. So
I mean,
kudos to you for taking that.
and it was 5 minutes he gave me that reset my brain. But I think that all comes back to what's your own professional story, and does anybody have goals on that this year or anything that you're thinking about? Nora, I'm going to look at you.
Thank you. I'm going to look at you too. It's interesting. I decided I was going to take this year and really put myself on a journey of understanding self-worth, self-confidence, and self-love.
I
And
love those.
they're all different.
Yeah.
They're all different. And many of us use them interchangeably. And I started on this journey because someone who I admire greatly is, and I've mentioned her before in some of our talks, is a woman by the name of Jamie Kern Lima. And she is the founder of IT Cosmetics.
Mm.
And she started as a waitress in a Denny's restaurant, and continued on her pursuit of education, her pursuit of, she was given up as a baby for adoption, continued on the pursuit of finding her mother, on the pursuit of and recognizing her dream. And so with, kind of very little to go on, she was a newscaster, had rosacea. She's a beautiful, striking woman, a little more curvy. I like to call it, she is the American woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? But beautiful, oh my God, just beautiful inside and out. And her journey, was more about believing enough in not dimming her own light, right? And so not taking rejection as rejection, but as, thank you. She has very strong faith. Thank you, God, for taking this and giving me this opportunity to understand that this is not what it was meant to be. And I'm going to keep going because I feel like I'm worthy and I've got something in me that I want others to have. And it's not, calling self-worth is not about, having ego, because and self-love is not about just loving yourself so you can love others. We always say that, and that's true. Don't get me wrong. But if you don't have that foundation of self-worth, in other words, that innate belief in what you're doing, that innate belief of what your purpose is, and take yourself on that journey, you're always going to be coming up against roadblocks that you yourself put up. Nobody else puts them up. Self-confidence is external. That's, thank you so much for telling me I look pretty today, right? That builds your self-confidence, but someone had to give you that for you to feel that. This is about you feeling it first inside. And it's been, I'm only 2 or 3 chapters into the book, but it's really teaching me a lot of things about, truly embracing who I am, not using words like your authentic self without really understanding what that means. And
There's
and
so
I-
many buzzwords sometimes around that.
Exactly. And she, in this, this is a working book. I know I sound like I'm trying to promote her book, but it's really, she's the one that really captivated me the very first time I heard her speak. I read her first book called Believe It. And I just fell in love with her because I felt like we had so many things. First of all, so many things in common, from her story. I was never a Denny's waitress, but I was a pop girl in a bingo hall. So that was my
Same.
first
Get the
job,
credit.
right?
Same.
I mean, you got to start somewhere. But just that belief and that never giving up and never letting someone else tell you who you are supposed to be, right? And I think about that lesson, especially for women who are younger in their career, maybe not quite as established, or maybe women who don't know exactly what they want to be doing, right? And taking the time to kind of work on yourself and the inside of yourself. You can still be mom of the year, or, you can still be teacher of the year, whatever it happens to be. But you can't do all those things without that platform, that foundation of self-worth.
I love that. Well, you may have to come back and tell us more about the rest of the
book.
year. And
Yeah.
What was the
Yes,
name
I
of the
would-
book?
Worthy.
Worthy.
Okay.
Write it down.
Yep.
Anybody else on that? Anastasia, did you not to?
No,
Just
I
want to
love
make sure I don't leave.
when Nora mentioned, purpose and knowing your purpose. And for me, I'm really focusing on being intentional. So being intentional about my time, about my purpose. And for me, my brand, I've been working on being more vulnerable. I think that, oftentimes, especially with women, we, adapt imposter syndrome. And so I've definitely self-inflicted a lot. Like I have to be perfect at all times. And I have to make sure that everything, is presented well, which again, that's part of the requirements to a sense or to a degree, but giving yourself grace, but then also making sure that I'm relatable to others and that, you don't have to have it all together. None of us do to be successful or to come up. So making sure that I'm helping pave the way by being, to your point, your authentic self. And what does that truly mean? Are you truly being vulnerable? Are you giving yourself grace? Are you sharing your journey along the way? The good and, the difficulties and how you overcame those things. So for me, just trying to be really focused and intentional about what my purpose is and helping to influence others to find their purpose if they already haven't, or to just enhance their purpose in life.
This is my new favorite one because I'm learning all these new things about these people that I work with every day. So I love that. Which kind of gets to our next point. I thought it would be fun to talk about because I know our group of women is part of what makes the job fun for me, and it's what gives me a support group, and I think it's what we've kind of created here is pretty special. And there's even a couple more that are not in here, and I think it's kind of unusual that we all kind of clasped hands together at some point virtually, and you use the word amplify a lot, which I think is great, but. I thought it'd be interesting if we talked about that and shared it. And is there any moment that has been meaningful for you in kind of our female leadership group or as a leader at the company? And we didn't talk about this question beforehand, so this is all. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to share.
I was going to say I was super being the newbie to the group. I was definitely pleasantly surprised. I mean, we have great. Obviously men executive as well, but I feel like it was the day it was announced that I was becoming store director. You all reached out and welcomed me. So I had that sense of belonging and definitely embraced me and have helped me tremendously as I've navigated it in my newer role and being a woman in leadership.
We let you into our IM group.
Yes.
You're in the chat.
I was like, okay. So it made everything just that much better. So
I remember you said this. I didn't even know this existed.
right.
It's sort of like a secret society.
No, and I think, sometimes that can be very rare when it comes to women. So women lifting each other up and welcoming me, it just means so much. So,
I want to say something about that. So when I first got into the role I was in, that's morphed once since then. But at that time, there was a brief period when it was like sort of just me and then sort of just me and Robin. And there was still a lot of men. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against men, but the numbers were sort of skewed. So this question about how does it feel to be part of this group? I hope, Robin, you feel this way. I think you do. We're pretty close. Like, it feels great because there used to didn't be a group. There was a time when there was not a group. And so to get to watch a group be born and made and it be cohesive, you've heard stories, Nastasia, sort of to your point about other businesses and companies where women don't get along. And this is a place where the exact opposite is. And to see the before and after of that and know that there hasn't been like a negative bump in the road along the way is just, it feels so, so good. It's amazing. Like, I'm proud of it from a diversity perspective. I mean, that's obviously should always be a goal of, an HR team, is like, you want a workforce that represents the communities and represents different ideas and opinions in all the ways that happens, not just gender. But to see it happen organically, like nobody pulled a lever or made like this next one has to be a lady. This has to be a young person, an old person. Like, that did not happen here. So to watch it naturally, organically happen to me says, maybe also back to your point, Nora, like there's a foundation here where that's going to happen. Like, it's like a really good science experiment it's just going to keep growing the right way naturally. So I want to say I'm proud of it, but I didn't make that happen, but I'm proud to be part of that.
Yeah. I think it's just really fun. I mean, I think of over the last couple of years, we've kind of laughed together, cried together, celebrated together, and, kids and marriages and, struggles and, so, just
Good days and bad days.
the good days and bad days. And I know without a doubt, if I have a question or if I have a concern or something I want to vent about or, tell a secret, I've got this group of women that I can trust. And they're always there for me. And it's, I think, Amy, when you asked that question, I'm like, just a couple of weeks ago, you reached out to me and said, oh, I just want to make sure you're okay. You had access to something I hadn't seen yet. And, you had real concern for me and you were there for support. And I appreciate that. So I think it's something special. And I'm really glad we have it.
Yeah, me too. All right. I'm going to switch gears. Any do-overs? So do you look back on anything and say, what you know now, anything you would have done differently, you think you passed on something that you shouldn't have, you took something on that you're like, why did I take that on? Or, everything is, sometimes I think there's some fun stories and what you do differently. Would you step differently any place?
I thought about this question, and I do have a spot in my resume where I hopped a little bit, very similar story. And when I read this question, I'm like, do I regret any of that? Hell no, because my toolbox just got bigger and more robust. And there was one step that was rough, and that was in 2008 when the bottom dropped out of the economy. And there were a lot of layoffs. And it was very hard to embrace that as, a woman in the retail industry in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, it was just awful. But you had to get over the fact that it wasn't personal. These were business decisions that were being made. It didn't make it easier, but at least you knew. And I really trusted that it wasn't me. It wasn't me, it was you. And it led me to something so much better and something I fell in love with, and that was the home industry. And, there are so many things, so many correlations between women's fashion and our home furnishings industry in terms of improving people's lifestyles, helping people, achieve their dreams and making their style their own and all of those things. But it was also a time of reflection and being able to say, here are all the things that I've learned on this journey, and this journey's been so good to me. And so now it's time for me to be good and making the right decision for me in my next career move. And I made that decision, moved my family yet again. I love my family so much. Oh my God. I can't believe they still want me because I moved them so many times. But and never looked back.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of like my story with Nebraska Furniture Mart. I know you guys all get sick of this story, but it's my favorite story about, you know, watching that Colony store be built and seeing that big chair in front of that store and driving by and going, I'm going to work for you someday. And you just don't know me yet. And, you know, and just making that, you know, kind of my mission.
Yeah.
Because after reading the history and the story and talking to different people in the industry about how NFM does business and how respected they are. And, you know, it didn't really even have anything to do with anything other than I wanted to go to a place that was still growing, that was still innovating, that was still honoring talent, and really had no idea what I got myself into that first year. But again, I use it as I use it as a learning lesson to also share with people who come into the organization. Because you come in with your toolbox, like I said, and guess what? You can leave that damn toolbox at the door the first year because you ain't pulling no tool out of it. But there's a time when that toolbox becomes important. That's a good time when the culture is ready to receive what you have to offer, but you have to show the culture that you're going to honor it also. And I think that's where people who come into our organization who think they're going to come in and change the world and just set this place on fire. And, you know, you can't lose sight of the wonderful people, the history, the legacy that got us to where we're at for the past 80 plus years. But we're here to take the company to, we're the platform for the next 80 years. And I know that Mrs. B lived a very long and fruitful life. And my goal is to outlive her. And honestly, and I want to be my best version of myself. I'm a certain age. Those of you that know my age know, but I don't think like that. I don't surround myself with people who think old, look old, feel old, project old. I try to surround myself with wonderful people who are inspiring, that are going to bring the very best out in me so that I can honor them by bringing out the best in them and having fun. We forget that this place is fun. I mean, we have the privilege of looking out at our customers right now, and I'm having a ball watching them walk around and watching our sales team, you know, try to take care of the customer and everything. But I have, I guess, to bring it back full circle, and I apologize for being so long-winded, but
good stuff.
It's a journey, and there should be no regrets. There should be learning lessons, of course, but I would hate to say that there's do-overs. Like, maybe I wouldn't have done a certain hairstyle in college, but you know, it was an homage to Prince. So I don't even know.
You know what, Nora, I was thinking that same thing. Like, this question, you sort of get asked it a lot, and it almost feels like a trick question because, yeah, there's stuff I hated, and if I could have not done it, but it's that butterfly effect. Well, if I didn't do that one job, and for me, I worked at a chemical plant, had a female boss who was just not nice. She was actually nice to me. She talked about people. Many of you have heard the story. She talked about people and the rest of the business. But you know what? It was my first job in HR. So I went from sales to HR. Where would I be without that? It was the sole reason, because that place was so miserable that when my husband said, hey, do you want to move to Nebraska? I was like, yeah, let's go. Again, 4 years later, seems a little like I'm chilly. Could do without the snow. But I mean, there's so many things happened from that experience that if I pulled that out of my lineup, it wouldn't be the same. So, I mean, I guess I wish that for everyone, that even if something bad has happened, that you've managed to turn it into good, and you don't want that piece to not be part of your life, because then your life wouldn't be where you're at. And whether or not your life's exactly where you want it to be today, as you hear this, is not as important as you're at a spot where you feel like you know where you want to go and how to get there, and Like, so I don't know, again, maybe we got to rephrase that question in the future because it's,
But I think it's an interesting statement right there that so if it is not clear that, oh, there were some places I made some mistakes, then women coming up behind us that are angst over, decisions on to take this role or this role or this role or whether to move to
Move.
this. It's, you know what, we're all sitting here going, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
We don't look
Yeah.
back and, I really liked Nashville. Sometimes I wish I'd tried a little harder to stay in Nashville when that
Oh,
company
same.
shut down. That is probably my one.
Yeah, same. I love Nashville.
Maybe I
too.
should have looked a little harder there.
Yeah.
But
Maybe that's our
otherwise-
next step.
Yeah.
We'll do our own thing someday.
Exactly. But I think that is the story, that it
And the
all
only
kind
way
of
to
fades
do
in and
that-
you start building it as part of your story. And
yeah, you
your
have to
training.
reflect, right?
Yeah.
You can't only look forward, you have to reflect. So yeah, good question.
All right, we're down to the last one, and I want everyone to answer this. We're still a home podcast, even though this is our leadership segment and our Women's Month. So, favorite home furnishings or decor can either be something you got at NFM, or it can be something that you inherited, or something you built, and I don't know the answer, so I'm super excited. Nastasia, we're gonna start with you.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I was going to say everything. It's hard for me to really narrow down anywhere else. What do you mean? But no, everything is furnished in my house from NFM. But I
No,
love
your favorite. What's your favorite?
I would say my accessories that I've gotten from NFM. So maybe
Like decor, like decorative.
yes, I love the new decorative items that we have on our floor, and I love the inspiration that our team puts out. So every time I'm walking the floor, I get a new idea. So I would say those are like the favorite pieces that I'm able to do with my home. So I
Do
guess
you
it
have
wasn't
any,
specific.
Inherited, or do you have something that was that handed down that you also have?
I don't.
See, I think there's
for me?
like some people do, some people don't.
Oh,
Sorry.
Nastasia, I can relate to the accessories in the buildings because I walked into the furniture building today and I'm not normally over here, and I was like, oh, no. So I'm walking up to the cashier with all my stuff, carrots and bunnies.
yes.
All the seasonal items, they're so
Yes.
cute,
Yes,
right?
and I said it is such a good thing for my paycheck that I don't work over here.
Okay, imagine if you worked in the electronics building.
Oh,
That too.
I'm not even a technology person. I'm always
Yeah.
buying. I need new bone earbuds or whatever those things are called. I don't know what they are, and I'm buying them.
And there's toys for my grandsons.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
See's
what's yours,
candy.
Robin?
Oh, candy. Yeah, how could we forget?
yeah. So me and my family were very outdoor people. So we've created kind of an outdoor oasis. We extended our deck, but then we bought great patio, the Anaral deck chairs and fire pits,
So you
and
got a nice outdoor.
so
area.
just
Yeah.
the whole outdoor speakers and little what do I want to call them, lanterns
Lights.
and fountains, and just creating a really zen, happy place outside because we're out there all the time. So
Love that.
everything in my house and my yard is NFM.
You
Nora.
need to go look at the new pots. I've seen the new pots.
Their prints, they're beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the patterns are really
Patterns.
I mean,
Thank
we've
you.
always
That's what I
had great pots for plants, outdoor plants, but this year, wowzer.
I will be there.
Nora,
Did
what's
it.
yours?
I would say it is my living room sectional that I got here during the pandemic.
Mhm.
My husband and I hadn't bought furniture in the entire span of our marriage. Yeah, I kid you not. And that's 30 plus years.
You
So
did like one in the beginning, and then you kept it.
yeah, we kept it. Yeah.
You just kept moving it. And
Just kept moving the damn thing. It was flex steel. I never fell apart. I mean, and then finally I sat on one of these, and finally the damn blue spring broke. I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was the age of the
30
furniture.
years.
Right.
When your furniture's as old as your kids,
Right. Exactly.
it's okay to buy new stuff.
And so I remember we have a wonderful salesperson here named Tammy. And I went up to Tammy and I said, I need living room furniture. And she goes, well, let's see what we have in stock. And she just led me around, and it just all came together. But that sectional's been a lifesaver for us. So
I love it. What's yours?
Okay, I'm so fired up about this question more than any other because I just got all new flooring in my house.
Oh.
So quick, I live in an old house built in the 1800s. There's an addition, so there had always been different floor. I I've got, like Nastasia, most of everything I have is either from my grandmother or from Nebraska Furniture Mart. So I love everything. But this flooring thing, I realized it was like, I don't want to invite people over because I have this old carpet. And like, I just kind of had this weird feeling. There was a sag in the floor. So I have so many people to thank here. I want to thank Dave Chambers for giving us the employee sale because, you know, that's an expensive purchase and it's one that's well worth the value of your home. I mean, it's the foundation, literally your home. So I could afford it thanks to Dave and our great vendor partners. The flooring installation contractors that we work with, I've been walking around looking at like every little piece. So not only did they fix this sag that my husband and I both used to literally walk around in our house, they fixed it. But every detail, every piece where it connects back into the wall is fantastic. But I want to tell you, so flooring's flooring, right? But I look at it now from my study. I can kind of turn in my chair that I bought from Nebraska Furniture Mart, look throughout the house, and I honestly feel like I'm in a magazine home. And so, you know what? People are like, maybe get over yourself. Okay, but that is what we always talk about. How does it make you feel? Like, it is not just a pillow you bought or a sofa you bought. It's how you feel. And I literally look at my house now and I'm like, I can't wait to have people over. I just, like I said, someone's probably going to ask me to do a traditional home magazine spread. I feel confident that is in my future. But that's my most recent and favorite purchase. And I don't know, like I just walk up and down the stairs every day and I'm like, look at these stairs. They don't creak anymore. Like I told my husband, this is again,
Kind of life-changing.
Life-changing.
That's every day.
that is the word I
Yeah.
use to my husband. It's life-changing. So again, we talk about homes and how you feel. That is now how, because of Nebraska Furniture Mart, that is how I feel on a daily basis. Thank you, Dave Chambers.
Thank you, Dave Chambers. Love that.
Thank you, Dave Chambers.
All right, well, I'm going to share mine. So mine is this was right kind of post-COVID. And, you know, I share my space with my husband, and every decision we've ever made on any furniture, and not that we bought a ton, but was always, you know, together. And I think in that process, for me at least, like I sort of lost those moments that there would have been something for me. And so I was taking a different space in the house, just a space. It wasn't even a room, that I decided to make it my office. And I specifically asked him, I'm like, I really want to do this my own, like just choices I would make. And he's like, yeah, do whatever you want to do. So I bought a ridiculous chair that I absolutely madly
I
in
know
love
the
with.
chair.
You know the chair,
Chair.
sure do. But you know what? My husband would have never bought the
What
chair.
is it? Can you describe it?
It's white furry.
It's Flickati.
It's
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
Moe's. Oh, yeah,
Mo's
it's the-
home.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it's comfortable and it's furry and it's feminine and it's ridiculous and I'm madly in love with it, and it's just in my little office space. But because it not only do I like it and I like how it looks, but I felt like it was like a moment for me to
Yeah,
have a moment in the house
reflection.
that
So I'm looking
I
at your
sort of
face right
took-
now, how it makes you feel.
Yes.
That's
every time I see it,
yeah,
every time I see it,
that's
I'm
what
like,
home
I
should do.
Just love this, this little chair. So that's my
Fantastic.
favorite item. So I think that kind of pulls it. We cut up. Oh yeah, Anastasia, we got you on that. We got everybody up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Looking at
just
it-
thank you,
looking at our
Amy? What a
normal
fun
list.
way to celebrate
Yeah.
International Women's Month. And
Mhm.
I do want to take a moment. I know that there's so many people that make this happen at NFM. There's marketing and merchandising and our sales staff, and our ERG groups and
Your team.
some HR team. Like, we really do a lot at this time of year to be grateful and thankful to all the women. So if you're a woman and you hear my voice right now, please know that it's a heartfelt thanks for all that you do.
For sure.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
So we got roses today at work,
Yeah.
and I couldn't help myself. I was, and Robin and I went to get our roses together, and I'm walking through the electronics building, and I see this couple, and I handed the woman my rose, and I said, Happy International Women's Month. And she said, thank you. We're on our way to go visit my mom at the hospital, and I'm going to give it to her.
Nice.
And I was like, what? How did that just happen?
Mhm.
And the
Pay it forward.
goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
The
Wow, I love
goosebumps.
that.
So thank you for the roses.
Yeah.
And we paid it forward.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
Well, thank you for Tyler and Scotty behind the scenes helping us through. Thanks for Anastasia, Robin, Megan, Nora for joining us today. Thank everyone who's listening. Make sure to subscribe, rate, review the I Am Home podcast, and then hop over to nfm.com women's-month, and you can learn about more that we've got going on in the company and what else, other events you can join.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
ladies.
Thanks for joining us today for I Am Home with Tyler Weisskopf, Hillary Waltemath, and Becca Sudbeck. No one knows home quite like NFM. So if you'd like more information on home design at NFM, please check out nfm.com and leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice.